Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Zander Sprague, and I am so delighted that you've joined me today. I have an epic show in store for you. Now, let's start off with that thought of the day. The 97-3 rule. You want to know what? 97% of your day is really going well, and up to 3% not so much, right? But, you know, it's how we view that 3%. And oftentimes we give way too much power to that 3%. I'll give you an example. I was speaking recently, and I came off and there were some online reviews. 49 of them were glowing, and one of them wasn't as glowing. What do you think I did? Did I say, wow, look at that. 49 reviews telling me how great I am. One didn't like my talk so much. Of course, I focused on that one, and that just isn't worth my time or effort. Focus on your full potential, not the things that didn't quite go right, because I guarantee so much more is going right. Pay attention to that. Now, I wanted to give you an update. It's not someone who's been on my podcast yet, but you want to know what? It's my mom, Lee Sprague. She's 85 and so alive. Let me tell you, I know she's my mom. I know I'm biased, but oh my gosh, this woman is incredible. Last year, or actually just this year, she was down in the Pantanal, which is the world's largest wetlands in Brazil, on safari. Why? Because she's like, I still can, and I want to go see the world. And she is. And in fact, in April, she's going to Japan because she's always wanted to see it. And I really admire that kind of epic adventure spirit to just say, while I can, I'm going to. Is it more challenging for her at 85? Absolutely. But she's not letting it slow her down. And on your epic dreams, don't let anything slow you down. Keep going as long as you can and make it to that goal. Today, I have a friend of mine, Michael Holland, joining me. Michael has done many things, but one of the coolest things he did is he worked in the Oakland Police Department. But Michael, tell us a little about who you are, and you're not just a police officer, you've done so much more.
Well, yeah, I mean, I spent 28 years in the Oakland Police Department, and when I retired, I was Deputy Chief. I ran investigations there. That was, I retired in 2005.
Wow.
Since then, I became a deacon at my church and volunteer way too much time at my church. And, you know, it's been an interesting life, especially the last, well, you know, immediately after I retired, I started working on a book, and as I told you, then that whole project got stalled as I, you know, was the primary caretaker for my mother through Alzheimer's and dementia, and finally, you know, a little small book, 110 pages that took 8.5 years to get done. So, other than that, I've always had a strong belief in justice, but I also believe that we do policing the wrong way in this nation.
Absolutely. Well, I'm interested. Now you got me interested. How should we be doing it, Michael?
Well, what we do right now is everything's about fighting against crime.
Right.
Stop. Stop trying to fight against what you don't want, because that's a never-ending battle. Mm-hmm. Work to create what you want.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I refer to myself as a creationist. No, I don't believe that we walked with dinosaurs, but I believe that what we need to do is to create what we want. If we want a nonviolent society, then we have to work towards a nonviolent society, not just responding to violence.
Absolutely.
And those are things that we don't do. If we want ethical police officers, we have to make sure, first of all, that the leadership is ethical of themselves and not just politically driven, but that they are ethical, and then they know how to lead other people into being ethical.
Absolutely.
And that's the big downfall, because many police officers and police leadership, they think that policy and procedure or policy and punishment will result in an ethical organization, and that never works. You take a bunch of intelligent, hard-charging, creative individuals and try to restrict their behavior through nothing more than policy, they're going to find ways around it.
Absolutely.
But if you give them leadership and take that energy to how can I do this in a more ethical or compassionate fashion, they can develop that too.
Absolutely. And, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about all the years that I was working and the many managers I had. And kind of like teachers, we all have that one or two teachers that we remember, lo these years, that you're like, oh, that was a great teacher. And if you think back about what was it, I think back to this one manager I had. And why do I think he was such a great manager? Why do I remember him 30 plus years later? And you're talking about ethics, because he was an ethical manager. He looked at what he needed me to do, looked 6 months ahead and said, Zander, I need you to learn this skill to intersect with where I'm going to need you to use that skill. He let us know when I was in a big corporation, when some announcement came out, he literally forwarded on to us and say, wind above your head, simply meaning read it, but you don't have to worry about it because it doesn't affect your day-to-day work. Leading by the way he wanted us to do things.
Right.
Feel safe to say, I don't have that skill set. Versus, oh, can you do it? Sure. But if you can't, now it's taking you longer, people are upset, versus going, no, I don't have that skill set, but I can get it.
Yeah. And using resources that other people won't necessarily recognize. I mean, for about 4 years, I was the chief of the Oakland Housing Authority Police Department. And there was this one, some of the senior housing facilities, and there was this one drug house on a block that was between the senior facility and the bus stop on International Boulevard. And the seniors would go 2 blocks out of their way so that they didn't have to
go by that house.
Well, OPD had done like 8 or 9 raids. The Housing Authority Police had done 2 or 3. And I'm sitting there going, okay, the next person just takes over. It's owned by one family, and just different family members were running this thing. And I'm like, we need a different solution.
Definitely.
And one of my guys goes, well, is there a mortgage on the house? And I'm like, I don't know. How do we find that out? He goes, well, I can figure it out because I do real estate on the side. All right. Well, what difference does that make? He goes, oh, well, if there's a mortgage on the house, then there's a clause in every mortgage in the state of California that says that the property can't be used for illegal purposes. And if we can do that, we can get the house foreclosed on in 3 months and 21 days. We did it. The bank immediately foreclosed on it. And in less than 6 months, because there was a little delay when folks tried to file bankruptcy, the house got foreclosed on. The housing authority bought the house, turned it into a Section 8 property, and a problem that had been going on for 15 years was resolved because we stopped looking at just arresting people as a solution.
Definitely. And again, realizing, and all of us have this challenge, there is more than one way to solve problems.
Yeah.
We just have to be open to the idea that, let me look at this. I laugh all the time that I am absolutely a creature of habit. I think that structure makes us feel comfortable as human beings. It's predictable. We know that, right? So I used to drive down to Silicon Valley for work. And I didn't entertain that there was more than one way to get to work because, oh, here's the fastest way to get to work. So I would just do that all the time. However, there was a time where on both 680 and 880, there were accidents and I couldn't go up either one. I was living in Castro Valley at the time. So I got rerouted through like Fremont, ended up taking Niles Canyon Road, which was beautiful. And I'm like, I never knew this existed. In part because I didn't entertain that there was more than one way for me to get home. In fact, there was. You know, certainly in police work, people, we hear all the time, be predictable in your movements. If you get pulled over for a traffic stop, make sure that you're not doing something that may startle the police officer because it's scary, right?
Right.
And understandably, traffic stops are some of the most dangerous times for a police officer.
Yeah.
So there's things like, tell them what you're doing. License and registration. I'm going to the glove box to get it, right?
Right.
Then the police officer, it's a much better experience for the driver because the police officer goes, I know what you're doing. You're not just reaching over to the glove box.
Yeah, I mean, when, you know, as an African American father, when I was teaching my son, what I was trying to teach him was, first of all, you never be belligerent. Everything's yes, sir. And then understand that you're not trying to win this conversation. You're trying to set yourself up for the next one. Because when that officer sees you and you were no problem and you were compliant and you gave him your license and then you went on your way, whether you got a ticket or not, the next time that officer sees you, there'll be the decision about, well, you know, that kid was all right. And he focuses on somebody else because if you're going to get belligerent with police officer, that is not a winning scenario.
No. And talking about, you know, you're talking about ethics and stuff. There, you know, sadly there are. I mean, in this day and age, everyone's got a camera. Everything's on camera. The police have body cameras, and there are the videos you see where there are police officers trying to trap someone, right? And knowing your rights is important. And saying, no, I don't actually have to let you search my car unless you have a reasonable articulated reason to do it. Just because you want to doesn't mean you can.
Yeah.
And, but I got a question for you.
Okay.
As a African American man here, you have a son, and how did you feel having to tell him, hey, here's what to do? Because that's not something my dad had to do. I'm a Caucasian male. I'm probably I wouldn't face the same thing that your son did. I know that's a really loaded question. So.
It's something that virtually every African American parent dreads having to do, but feels that it's absolutely necessary to do. Because more African American young men are killed by police than any other group per capita.
Yep.
And so, you know, we understand the history of policing in a different way than the average person does, because we're looking at policing that started back during slavery, through Jim Crow.
Yeah.
And all of the abuses and violence of that. And so if, you know, society expects us to forget that in a couple of generations, I mean, we're what? The end of Jim Crow was in the mid-'60s? We're talking less than 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So believe me, yeah, I still remember that because I was a kid back then.
Yeah.
And I knew the things that happened. So even though I'm 70 now, and my son's 34, he and I still talk about those things because he understands, because he's also we made sure he understood the history.
Definitely.
And so you can't just sweep it under the rug. Folks that would say, oh, we're in a post-racial world because we elected Barack Obama. I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you even paid any attention to what else is going on in this world?
Absolutely.
And when you point at just policing alone, you will see these things that you just kind of like go, how in the world would anybody think they could do something like that?
Yeah.
George Floyd's death.
Absolutely.
When I sat and watched that thing, I was like going, I'm sorry, what? How in God's name would you think that you would be managing that properly as a police officer? That was just flat out abusive.
Absolutely.
And it took a man's life.
Absolutely.
And we're talking, what, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
5 years ago now, I guess?
Yeah.
That's well after Jim Crow era
Definitely.
ended. But there's people who think about it, well, they don't think about that individual as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the reasons when I was at OPD, if I heard an officer referring to people in a way that was dehumanizing,
Sure.
that was something I could not accept.
Absolutely.
I remember having an officer say, well, we're going to deal with this burglary problem by focusing on the Ewoks and night crawlers. And I'm like, what in God's name are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, the homeless and the drug addicts. And I'm like, so when did we decide that we could talk about people like that?
Yeah.
And
well, because it makes it easier if we dehumanize them.
It makes it easier.
And it's yeah, absolutely. And it is, it can be hard to sometimes, if your experience is that not every time, but most times, I'm trying to think of. Okay, well, I'll give an example. I worked in a retail store, kind of like Macy's back in Boston, one summer, and there was a fair amount of shoplifting. There was, store security was on top of it, trying to help theft prevention and stuff. And when there were young males that came into, didn't matter their color, that came into the department, store security was watching them. And I don't think that was particularly, I had a problem, I'm like, well, that doesn't seem fair. I don't know, just because they've got a sweatshirt and jeans on doesn't mean they can't buy these Armani pants.
Right.
However, as time went on and I watched people shoplifting, I was like, okay, right or wrong, I was still like, oh, I think I gotta keep an eye out, because my experience is 7 out of 10 people aren't buying, but the pants are missing, and they seem to be missing after that male left, right?
Right.
And it's not right. I got it, but I was like, my experience was this seems to be happening when young men are coming into this department. And how do police, again, there are experiences as a police officer that you're like, I keep experiencing this thing,
Well,
young men driving too fast.
We develop our own types of profiling.
Sure.
So even as police officers, if every time that you make a car stop, it's some young African-American man and he's belligerent, and then your attitude will slowly become to where you expect that.
Right.
And you set yourself up in that kind of framework. You also, which is a form of profiling, though it's subconscious.
Yeah.
In the situation you're talking about there's probably a significant profile that you begin to consciously recognize. But it's not just, if you're looking at, the person's race and their age only, then you're going to be off base more times than not.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you start looking at, it's 102 outside, the guy's wearing a heavy trench coat when he comes walking into he's got a couple of bags, and I'm like, well, why would somebody be wearing a trench coat in such warm weather? And it's because they can, or they have certain types of bags or boxes with them and stuff. You start seeing the age and the way that they're behaving, and you look at behavioral clues. The Israelis have this really expansive profiling system to look at who might be a terrorist trying to attack their airports.
Sure.
And when's the last time you heard about somebody actually pulling off a bombing inside an airport there or something? Because they recognize so many different things, and they're looking for multiple behaviors. They're not just looking for men of certain age, they're looking for men, for women, even for children.
Yeah.
And they're looking for a number of different behaviors.
Behavioral things, nervous, sweating, breathing.
They're looking for I think 11 different points.
Okay.
1 or 2 don't matter.
Right.
5 or 6 is something to pay attention to.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
But we don't do it that way.
No.
We don't teach people how to do that and how to look at that. A really good police officer learns it on his own.
Definitely.
And will get to where he can recognize. I got stopped by a young officer down in Fresno about 5 or 6 years ago. And as we were talking, I'm giving him my license and stuff, and he still got his hand on his gun, like 3 minutes into the
interaction,
stop.
right? Yeah.
Right? And I'm like going, "How long have you been doing this, man?" And he goes, "What business is that of yours?" And I said, "Well, at this point, you should have been able to recognize that I'm no threat to you, and you wouldn't necessarily need to have your hand on your gun."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "How would you know that?" So I told him who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And he went like, "How would I learn that?" And I said, "You got to learn what is dangerous and what's not, and learn people's behavior. You're making a decision because this was an African-American man pulled over in front of a closed business,
mm-hmm.
and you felt that suspicious. But once you saw me, talk to me, you didn't see anything that would raise your suspicions, and you didn't de-escalate."
Right.
And he was like, "How do I learn to do that?"
Definitely.
But nobody taught him.
Yeah.
It was like, you be careful. This is the potential threat. Well, once you see that there is no potential threat, you need to figure out how to bring things down.
And kind of what gets triggered there being, I'll pull out the, mental health professional, the psychologist in me, that says that within 1 second of interacting with someone,
Mm-hmm.
Very subconscious, safe or dangerous, right? That's the first thing. It's a survival mechanism. It's
Absolutely.
And if you're constantly in that safe or dangerous, and you assume that it's danger versus safe first, right? Or to get to safe, it's got to be a really high level. There's the education to say, understand psychology, understand human psychology, understand behavior. Look at how, like, the Secret Service can scan a crowd and pick out someone that doesn't look, they're like, that person's a person of interest. And the person's just standing there. How did they know that? Because they have lots of training on looking at, as you said, like the Israelis, looking for all of these signs that say, we need to keep an eye on that person. They may be fine, we're not going to do anything, but that person seems to be sweating profusely. Why?
We do the same thing for security at my church.
Yeah.
And the term we use is DLR, don't look right.
Yeah.
Because we know who's the members of our church are, and new people come visit, and there's a perspective, so you see people and you see how they're behaving in the church, and where other people are enjoying the music and seem to be enthralled with the sermon or whatever else is going on, and then you see somebody who's doing nothing but just slowly looking around and watching as the plate's being passed.
Yeah.
And where's the money going? And then, okay, that doesn't look right.
Right.
So we notice that, okay, just keep an eye on that person. So we've got the cameras, and one person will say, hey, that guy just got up and started walking towards the back hallway.
Yeah.
Okay, and somebody will meet him at the back hallway.
Right.
And just politely say, hi, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
How can I help you now?
Exactly. Exactly. So you were talking about how the police officers don't have kind of this, I guess we'll call it human behavior training. Is that what you would call it, or?
There is some.
Clearly there needs to be more though, Michael.
Oh, clearly more. And it needs to be something that's repeated.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, I remember there were a couple of really unfortunate shootings with young men who were mentally ill. One was just deaf, and he couldn't hear what the officer was saying.
Yeah.
And didn't understand what was going on, and he ended up getting shot. And so we got all of this. There was a batch of training that came through about how to interact and how to address those kinds of issues. That was a one-time thing, and then you would.
Yeah, it's not like a one and done kind of thing.
Yeah, you can't do it that way. You've got to always be looking at it. I mean, there's so much one and done training in policing that it's ridiculous. I remember being trained on how to use a 27-inch baton. That was 1978. The next time I had any training on that was 2003.
Wow.
And that was because I asked one of the instructors to work with me.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And so you get people using the equipment incorrectly because we don't maintain proficiency with less lethal types of things.
Absolutely.
But we do maintain proficiency with the firearm.
With the lethal, right.
But we don't maintain proficiency with hand-to-hand, with wrist locks, with things that we can control people without causing serious harm. We don't make sure that we maintain proficiency with those things.
Yeah, and that's really a shame, because it probably would avoid a whole lot of unnecessarily violence, and again, just the police being vilified. Okay, yes, bad is happening. I'm not
absolutely
not trying to wash, sort of make that look. I was going to say whitewash, but I can't really say that now. So, but to sanitize it.
Yeah.
Okay. But there is stuff that you're like, that really could have gone a couple of different ways, a lot more positively for everyone.
Right. And there's standards for policing in California are among the highest in the nation. But some states, it's 2 weeks of training to, we're at Oakland Police Department, it's 6 months of training.
Yeah.
Minimum in California is like 3.5 months.
Right.
Other places, they get almost no training at all.
It's like a weekend course at the Ramada, and congratulations, here's your badge and your gun.
Yeah, or it's somebody's cousin that gets hired, So there's all kinds, there's this whole breadth of poor training standards, and some of it just comes down to the fact that city governments don't want to pay for it.
Right.
Because that takes, if you've got an officer in a training class, they're not on the street.
Yep.
And you have to backfill and cover that. And that costs more money. And so the budget goes up. So it's like, we do all of the state mandated training and the state mandated updates every year or 18 months or so, but trying to stay on top of things that are not mandated, that would really have an impact on the quality of policing within a community. Nobody wants to spend the money on that.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
It is.
Well, Michael, we could talk all day about this. This is fascinating. I want to thank you so much for coming in. Such great knowledge. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your wisdom with us, your experience.
It's been a pleasure. It was great seeing you again, my friend.
It's good to see you, my friend. And I want to remind everyone that if you're ready to begin your epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. And remember that epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.